Okay, so moving forward with specifics on the health adaptation processes, looking at elements and steps. A. Lay the groundwork and address gaps in undertaking the HNAP process, Health National Adaptation Process. So it's funny to say HNAP is already a process, and I think maybe they meant plan, Health National Adaptation Plan process. So maybe the acronym is written wrongly. Okay, align the health adaptation planning process, yes, so HNAP, with the national process for developing a national adaptation plan. As we said before in the previous sections, National Adaptation Plan must address sectoral needs, and health has to be one of the sectors, so health adaptation has to be synergistic in that sense. So three components need to be addressed when strengthening institutional arrangement. These correspond to the functional needs of climate change adaptation. Okay, mainstreaming climate change adaptation into national planning process. I won't read all the details here, but let's read a few key points. Adaptation interventions and activities identified within the HNAP will subsequently need to be evaluated, prioritized, and implemented through the existing programs. Therefore, HNAP is a process to be embedded within existing national health processes rather than as an independent process. We've talked about how climate change adaptation has to be synergistic with economic development and resilience building. Similarly, HNAP has to be part of the National Adaptation Plan with existing healthcare systems, etc., health processes working with the HNAP and not running some parallel process. Implementation of health adaptation responses is another key step. Although a team of climate change and health experts may identify possible adaptation policies and programs, public health teams at the local, regional, and national levels will share responsibility for implementation. We talked about how to organize the governance of adaptation before in terms of public finance management, at a budget process, local and regional governance, and synergy with the central governance for region-specific adaptation, and so on. So health sector has to follow the same thing. For example, for India or the Indian subcontinent, you have a range of diseases from diarrheal to chronic to because chronic diseases like asthma become exacerbated with warming and pollution as well, especially because warming also comes with humidity increases and so on. Coordination of the overall health adaptation process. A coordination function will be required to ensure that all adaptation efforts are developed and implemented in accordance with the HNAP. Countries will have to define this coordination function within the Ministry of Health based on the national context. For example, designating an existing and establishing a new unit for this process. So now health issues like heat waves are related directly to climate change and warming. So there are plans within the National Disaster Management Agency to manage heat waves with hydration centers, shelters, transportation, and so on. So you know that now climate change, adaptation, health sector, and natural hazards like heat waves, cyclones, extremes are all going to come together. So the NAP has to worry about all those things. Looking at the schematic of how integrating the HNAP within overall NAP process happens within existing national health planning, we have the overall national adaptation process here that countries develop and commit to, and you have health NAP coordination within that, which feeds back with the NAP process so that it's adaptive, and the NAP process also feeds back with the other climate sensitive sector adaptation plans like water, energy, food, and then health NAP has to interact with those as well, with resulting in an interactive process with health operational levels, with some examples as environmental health, communicable disease control, and health emergency preparedness. So here again you have to connect the fact that climate change affects water, food, air quality, health, and displacement of people. So health will have direct and indirect interactions with all these elements. So we need really an adaptive plan both at the National Adaptation Plan process and the Health NAP process as well. Step 2, taking stock of available information. Identify national and subnational research on the health risks of climate variability and change. Knowledge of factors increasing and decreasing vulnerability, adaptation policies and programs undertaken, and national and regional capacity gaps to undertake the HNAP. This step is essentially a SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities and threats, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis to guide development of the NAP. Special consideration has to be given to potential institutional barriers within the health sector and to capacity needs to ensure the effective implementation of the HNAP. Okay, health in general is severely affected by lack of data or sharing of available data, which is a problem across all countries, and there is other problems such as different agencies collecting different information. Environmental information is connected by some meteorological organization. Health information is collected by some health organization. Air quality and water quality are collected by some environmental protection agency type entities. So matching all these to develop health indicators and early warnings is very tricky, so that has to be part of the taking stock of available information so that going forward data gathering is better coordinated. Step 3, identifying approaches to address capacity gaps and weaknesses in undertaking the Health National Adaptation Plan. Based on the SWOT analysis and identification of capacity gaps, it's important to ensure that health decision makers have the necessary capacity to effectively move adaptation planning forward. Countries without comprehensive health, vulnerability and adaptation assessments might consider conducting one in preparatory elements if resources permit. So we'll look at that in step 4. Let me confirm that V and A is exactly what I said. It's always tricky to keep up with these things. Where am I? I'm in the right place. So I'm looking at the iPad for the document that is open to make sure I don't say anything. So vulnerability and adaptation. So that's good. So in B, so we have A, B, C, D. In B, we have HNAP preparatory elements. So here comes step 4. Conduct a health, vulnerability and adaptation assessment, including short to long-term adaptation needs in the context of development priorities. So now we have adaptation, economic development, climate change, health, all have to come together and be synergized. This step refers to a comprehensive V&A assessment. The WHO guidance on conducting a V&A assessment combines 3 steps included in the least developed countries export group guidance. Example given: analyzing current climate and future climate change scenarios, assessing climate vulnerabilities and identifying adaptation options. Thirdly, reviewing and appraising adaptation options. Data and information gathered in this step will inform subsequent activities in the HNAP. So that's about preparatory elements for HNAP. Step 5 is on reviewing implications of climate change on health-related development goals, legislation, strategies, policies, and plans. Health system strengthening is a priority development objective for most countries, including least developed countries. So maybe the main entry point for planning health adaptation interventions. Health is an important aspect of economic development because productivity and GDP and outcomes all depend on health of the whole society, especially the labor force, and health of the children and women matter a lot for Human Development Index, education, training, etc. as well. Health system building blocks may be used as a framework to link climate change adaptation planning to national development goals. For example, service delivery, health workforce, health information systems, and leadership and governance, access to medicines and health systems financing. So financing, again, like in adaptation, has to be an integral part of the National Adaptation Plan, because without health systems being part of the budgetary process, you cannot ensure that year after year you have the funding for building health resilience and health adaptation. Because the intention is to build the resilience of existing health programs, it's vital to ensure coordination with and relevant support for these programs, such as vector-borne diseases, infectious diseases, non-communicable diseases, nutrition, and so on. It's not intended for the HNAP to create parallel structures for managing the health risks of climate change. So every country will have some healthcare system running, and any new developments for managing health risks of climate change have to be very synergistic with the existing health systems. Okay. Step 6, develop a national health adaptation strategy that identifies priority adaptation options. This step includes developing a national strategy within a national adaptation plan. Based on their national context and needs, countries will determine the process to be followed for proposing a strategy and plan to minimize the adverse health risks of climate change and to build the resilience of the health system. This guidance assumes that countries vary in the amount of effort undertaken on climate change and health. Each country will not be the same. Although there is no unique approach for developing a NAP, having an in-depth assessment of health vulnerability and risks of climate change is a key target for all countries to inform sound adaptation responses. Having a comprehensive assessment will facilitate more detailed adaptation plans. Countries without such an assessment should include this as a first activity in their plan. Why did I have this again? I screwed up that. Okay, so that was review. I have screwed this up somehow. Okay, so let me leave this here, come back, clean it up a little, and then move forward. Okay, this happens when you prepare PowerPoints and you are not super careful about going back and seeing how you arranged things. Okay, so I'll do that, but this podcast should stand on its own with these steps for now. Okay.